Welcome back to Fascinating History, where today we will travel back in time to the streets of Whitechapel, 1888. London, 1888. The gaslit streets of Whitechapel concealed a chilling secret that sent shockwaves through the world. A shadowy figure known as Jack the Ripper, a name etched in infamy, stalked the darkness, leaving a trail of gruesome murders in his wake. But who was this enigmatic killer, and what drove him to commit such heinous acts? In this gripping exploration, we delve into the eerie alleys of history, unearthing the mysteries surrounding Jack the Ripper. We'll delve into the Whitechapel murders, examining the victims, the investigations, and the chilling messages that taunted the authorities. We'll walk in the footsteps of fear, seeking answers to questions that have eluded generations of investigators. So, what secrets lie beneath the surface of this dark chapter in history? Stick around and you'll find out. And tell us in the comments what other topics you'd like us to discuss next. The Whitechapel murders begin. Imagine the dark, foggy streets of Victorian-era London, where gas lamps flicker, casting eerie shadows on cobblestone roads. It was in this gloomy setting that the terrifying story of Jack the Ripper began. On the fateful night of August 31st, 1888, Mary Ann Nichols was walking the streets of Whitechapel, a poverty-stricken district in London. Mary Ann was down on her luck, struggling to make ends meet like many others in that area. Little did she know that this night would change the course of history. As the clock ticked towards midnight, Mary Ann Nichols found herself in Buck's Row, a dimly lit alley. Suddenly, out of the shadows emerged a sinister figure, his face concealed by the darkness. He attacked Mary Ann with a ferocity that sent shivers down her spine. He slashed her throat with a sharp knife, leaving her gasping for breath. But that wasn't the end of her horror. The unidentified assailant, who would later become Jack the Ripper, didn't stop there. He brutally mutilated Mary Ann's abdomen, leaving a scene of unimaginable horror. When her lifeless body was discovered by a passerby in the early hours of the morning, the shockwaves ripped through the community. Mary Ann Nichols was the first victim in a series of gruesome murders that would terrorize Whitechapel and capture the world's attention. Over the next few months, 4 more women fell victim to this ruthless killer: Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Each murder followed a gruesome pattern: throats slashed, bodies mutilated, and a horrifying level of brutality that left the community in fear. The streets of Whitechapel became a chilling hunting ground for Jack the Ripper. Panic swept through the neighborhood as the news of the murders spread like wildfire. Women were terrified to venture out at night, and the district was gripped by dread. Investigation and public outcry. The police were under tremendous pressure to catch Jack the Ripper. Every new murder sent shockwaves through the city. The people were terrified, and they demanded answers. The press was relentless in its coverage, with newspapers screaming headlines about the horror of Whitechapel. The public outcry was deafening. Imagine the detectives poring over every detail of the crime scenes, looking for clues. They meticulously interviewed witnesses, but the killers seemed to vanish into thin air after each murder. This wasn't like solving a simple puzzle, it was a race against time with a shadowy, cunning adversary. As the investigation intensified, the police brought in experts and even consulted with doctors to understand the killer's gruesome methods. The autopsies revealed the sheer brutality of the crimes, with throats slashed and bodies mutilated. The level of violence was chilling, and terror gripped the city. But here's the twist. Despite their best efforts, the police couldn't catch a break. They had suspects, but no concrete evidence. The more they dug, the more complex the case became. False leads, Hoaxes and witness testimonies contradicting each other added to the confusion. It was a frustrating and exhausting endeavor for the investigators. Now, think about the frustration of the people living in Whitechapel. They felt like they were living in a nightmare, with a killer on the loose who could strike at any moment. Vigilante groups formed, and the streets were filled with rumors and paranoia. The pressure on the police was immense, and the city watched with bated breath as the investigation unfolded. Despite the tireless efforts of law enforcement, Jack the Ripper remained elusive, leaving behind a legacy of fear and mystery that would persist for generations to come. The hunt for Jack the Ripper continued in this tense atmosphere, with the world watching and waiting for justice to be served. But as the investigation moved forward, it became clear that capturing this elusive killer would be no easy task. Letters and taunting messages. As fear gripped the city, a peculiar twist emerged in the Jack the Ripper case. It all began with letters, chilling messages that would both captivate and confuse the authorities. In the autumn of 1888, as the gruesome murders continued, Londoners were introduced to a new character in this gruesome drama, Jack the Ripper himself. Or so it seemed. Letters claiming to be from the murderer began arriving at the Central News Agency. One of the most famous letters is the Dear Boss letter. The Dear Boss letter, postmarked September 25, 1888, opened with a bone-chilling salutation. Quote, "Dear Boss, I keep hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet." It was a direct message from the alleged killer to the press and the public, adding an unnerving layer of intrigue to an already horrifying series of events. What made this letter even more perplexing was a promise from the writer to clip the lady's ears off and send them to the police, accompanied by a gruesome threat of turning his next victim into a nice stew for you. The tone was sinister and boastful, creating an atmosphere of dread in London. In the following weeks, more letters and postcards, all claiming to be from Jack the Ripper, arrived at newspapers and police stations. Some contained cryptic messages, while others included grotesque drawings and macabre references. But, as with many aspects of the Jack the Ripper case, historians and investigators have debated the authenticity of these messages. For instance, the Saucy Jackie postcard hinted at the Ripper's intention to commit another murder on a particular date, but no such killing occurred. This led some to question whether the letters were genuinely from the killer or the work of hoaxers, seeking to exploit the terror that had gripped the city. These letters and messages deepened the mystery surrounding Jack the Ripper. They fueled the public's fascination and fear, making it increasingly difficult to separate fact from fiction. These correspondences' taunting and cryptic nature ensured that Jack the Ripper would remain an enigma, his true identity hidden in the shadows of history. End of the terror. In the chilling days of November 1888, the city held its breath, waiting for the next sinister act from the shadowy figure, Jack the Ripper. But then, an eerie stillness fell upon the cobbled streets, and the nightmare seemed to draw to an end. On the fateful night of November 9th, 1888, the Ripper's final victim, Mary Jane Kelly, met her tragic fate. Mary was a woman of the night, known to many in the area. She had sought refuge in a small room on Miller's Court, tucked away from the cruel world outside. The gas lamps cast long, flickering shadows as the night wore on. It was in this suffocating darkness that Jack the Ripper, the embodiment of terror, entered Mary's life for the last time. What happened behind those closed doors is too grim to recount in total, but it was a scene of unimaginable horror. Mary Jane Kelly became the final tragic chapter in this grim tale. With the dawn of December 1888, a profound silence descended upon the streets of Whitechapel. An eerie calm replaced the once frenetic atmosphere. It was as if the city held its breath, waiting to exhale. In the days that followed, the people of London cautiously emerged from their homes, their hearts heavy with grief and trepidation. The newspapers, once filled with daily horrors, now spoke of the Ripper in the past tense. The reign of terror had come to an end. The city heaved a collective sigh of relief, yet questions lingered in the air. Who was this evil specter that had haunted the streets of Whitechapel? Why had the killing stopped so suddenly? As the years turned into decades and decades into centuries, the legend of Jack the Ripper lived on, a dark stain on the pages of history. This riddle has confounded generations of investigators and storytellers. And so, the tale of Jack the Ripper, like the man himself, slips through the fingers of time, leaving behind only the echoes of terror and the unanswered question, who was he? So, could Jack the Ripper's identity ever be revealed, or will this mystery forever lurk in the shadows of the past? Please let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to like and share. Also, hit the subscribe button to get notifications on the latest uploads on the channel. As always, see you in the following video.